Hi everyone, Luke here from Weekend Tour Pros. You're joining me again today as we continue our head-to-head battles of the TITLEIST irons available in 2024 by taking both of their players' distance offerings, the TITLEIST T200 head-to-head versus the TITLEIST T150. Now I'm a mid-handicap golfer with an average swing speed, and I therefore would be looking at both of these irons if I was going to game a set of TITLEIST irons in 2024. So I'm keen to give both of them a hit side by side on TrackMan, talk you through all the data, and hopefully help you to work out which is the right iron for you. Let's get stuck in. Right, before we start hitting shots, I just want to tell you a little bit about how these two irons differ in terms of their looks and also in terms of their loft makeups. Now, the TITLEIST T200 is definitely a very traditional player's distance loft in 2024 at 30.5 degrees, while the T150 is a slightly weaker loft at 32 degrees, and that's because it's appealing maybe to the golfer that's maybe graduating from blades to a little bit more forgiveness, needing a little bit more distance, and therefore you have got that kind of 7-iron that's somewhere between a bladed club and a more traditional player's distance iron. All the way through the set, they do end up blending together at about 48 degrees in the gap wedge, but you do have between 3 to 4 degrees of loft difference between these two irons, and I'll put that up on screen for you to see now. In terms of the looks of these two irons, I think overall, again, following that same pattern of how the lofts are progressing, we are seeing that the T150 is a slightly sleeker profile overall, and hopefully the camera is showing that for you. The top line is just a little bit thinner than the thicker top line on the T200. The T200 is not thick by any means, but it is something that someone who's graduating from a game improvement iron to a player's distance iron, it will still give them enough confidence that there is forgiveness in this golf iron from that slight thickness of top line and that fraction more offset. Whereas the player who potentially is moving from a blade and moving to something that is offering them a little bit more help and forgiveness, I think the T150 design will really appeal to you because, again, it is that slightly more slicker, compact profile. The one thing I do notice is on the faces of them, they do have a little bit more of a high shine finish on the T200 and a slightly more matted finish on the T150. Again, if that's important to you, it is something just worth calling out. If we look at the sole design of both of these irons, as well as obviously bringing to life that difference between the high shine on the T200 and the more matted finish on the 150, you can see that the sole is a little bit thicker on that T200. However, what I would say for a player's distance iron, it's certainly one of the sleeker irons that I've seen. If we compare it to something like the Ping i530, that definitely has a thicker sole than the T200. The T150 as well is quite a thin sole design. Again, nothing like a bladed club that I've tested before in the past, but it definitely is sleeker than that T200. And again, if that will appeal to the golfer that likes a more traditional looking iron. From the back of both of these irons, they both are really nice looking golf clubs. You can definitely work out the shape of the iron from that T150, whereas the badge and the fill-in on the T200 does make it look like it is a bit more of a traditional club due to the way that's filled in. But for me personally, I like the looks of both of them. I really do like the T200. I definitely think the T150 will appeal to a lot of golfers as well. So some really good looking irons. And I think that does bring me on to one of the key things with TITLEIST irons. They've designed these sets to be able to be blended and work together, whether that's jumping from T350 to T200, T200 to T150, or T150 to T100, there's an opportunity to mix and match your sets. So it could be that you are a golfer that plays the T200 in maybe 4, 5, 6 iron and then jumps up to that T150 in the 7-iron upwards, because again they can adjust the lofts to make sure they blend all together for you, and that could be a really good option for the golfer that's maybe a fraction better than me. I play off an 11 handicap, and I think the T200 might on paper be the right one for me, but someone off of maybe 7 or 8 might like that benefit of a bit more help at the top end of the bag. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit a batch of shots with both of these irons, starting with the T200. I'll talk you through the TrackMan data, talk you through feels and sounds, and we'll try and call out the differences between these two irons. Right, so just before I hit the first shot, worth calling out that we are using the same shaft in this test to try and make the test as consistent as possible. That's a True Temper AMT Red, which is one of the various custom fit options that TITLEIST offer. The reason I picked that shaft is when I had my previous set of T200s, the original version, that was the shaft that I was custom fit for. I therefore know it's a really good shaft for me, and I did also use that in my T350 versus T200 video, and it did perform really well. So keen to continue to use that because it's offered with both of these heads. We are also using the Pro V1 as a golf ball throughout. Again, another consistency. So the biggest variable here is going to be me as the 11 handicap golfer, but hopefully we'll be able to hit enough shots with both of these clubs to demonstrate the differences between them. And it's absolutely flushed. Oh my God. I absolutely loved these irons when I hit them the other day. And I did say at the time, like, one of my lessons is Don't buy the first generation of a new set of irons, because my T200s, the first set, they were okay, but they just didn't do what I needed them to do. I then hit these the other day doing the T200 v T350 video, and I absolutely fell in love with them. And that shot first out of the gate is exactly why. 112 mile an hour ball speed, carrying at 162, totaling 172, spinning at 4,600, launching at 21 degrees, peak height of 94 feet, which is unbelievably high for me, and land angle at 47 degrees. That's just a perfect 7-iron golf shot. And if I could have that on repeat, time after time, my handicap would come down. And these irons really, really do inspire that confidence. Just turn that over ever so slightly, but it's a really nice golf shot. As good as the first one. Look at that. Absolutely middled it in terms of ball speed as well. 114.5, carrying at 166, spinning at 4.7, launch angle 20 degrees. That peak height again of 94.6 feet. I'm always looking for my 7-iron to go to 80 feet. These are at 94.6, land angle of 47 degrees. These are just such high golf shots with this T200. And again, people will say the lofts are strong, they're jacked up lofts, etc. But because of the way these players' distance irons are made, they're just able to get that launch out of these irons, and that stopping power is still there, and that's great. That's so high again. Look at that, 113 of ball speed, carrying at 164, absolutely middled, you know, fraction towards the heel, spinning at 4.6. Look at that launch height and land angle again, they're just so high. Just turn that over a fraction again. That might be a little bit higher distance because I've just turned it over slightly. Look at that. 114 of ball speed, carrying at 166.5, spinning at 4.5, launching at 19.4, peak height of 90 feet, land angle of 45.4. One thing I would say, having hit now 4 or 5, they feel incredible. They really are incredible feeling. They've got that just little bit of softness when you catch it out that middle part there that just feels great as club and ball come together. They sound fantastic as well, really, really to my taste. Unfortunately, I've just hit a massive pull draw there, but 111 of ball speed, carrying at 157, spinning at 4960. But again, for a pull draw, you know, normally that means lower launch, lower height. Those numbers are still as good as anything I can get. Slide over correction, slightly left out to the left-hand side this time. 111 of ball speed, carrying at 160, spinning at 4846, launching at 22 degrees, peak height of 100 feet. I've finally passed 100 feet with 7-iron. That might even be too high now. Landing at 49. These are just going to stop so quickly. Right, one more with the T200. Caught that a fraction heavy. It'll be interesting to see what drop-off we get there. That's super impressive. So I have caught it a fraction heavy, and it's therefore gone a little bit higher up on the face, but we've still got 108 of ball speed. We've still carried it 157. Yes, that spins a little bit lower at 4239, but look how good that launch angle, that peak height, and that land angle are still for a heavy shot. Unbelievable. Right, let's switch over to the T150. Jesus. That's so high, and it's coming down like it's got snow on it. Straight out the gate. Slightly heely strike, which is so impressive for me because I've normally missed a toe. 111 of ball speed, carrying at 158. I'm really impressed by that distance. I didn't think I'd get it out that far. That's as good as, like I say, I can hit with my own 7-iron that's 31 degrees. Spinning at 4954, launching at 22, peak height of 100 feet is, straight out the gate, is super impressive. And land angle at 49. These are just, I feel like Rory McIlroy of how high I'm able to hit that shot. I'd left the last one out there ever so slightly to the left, just overcorrected that, and maybe it's a little bit of a pull draw, unfortunately. Again, pull draw, exactly what you'd expect to see happen. The distance just jumps up that little bit to 162, which is huge. Ball speed of 113, spin at 4846. Launch angle at 19.4, a little bit lower launching than the T200, which is really interesting because we have got a little bit more loft there, although that was a pull draw. Peak height of 87 feet, again on a pull draw, is still really impressive, as is that land angle. Just a little bit down the left, it's dead straight down the left-hand side. Now that is interesting, maybe because of the face being a little bit open, and look how high it's gone. I've never hit a 7-iron 103 feet, it's just ridiculously high. 156 yards of carry, spinning at 5.3. We did get that spin that I wanted to see, and we've seen, again, that launch angle, that land angle, that's just unbelievable. I can't believe you could just, I don't think I'd ever spin back a 7-iron, but that's not far off of giving me those numbers. That's such a shame. Just turned that one over quite significantly. 80.3 of club head speed, ball speed 115, carrying at 165, 4708 of spin, launch height, land angle a little bit lower because of that pull again down the right hand side. The interesting thing here is I was expecting to see a greater difference between these two irons. So for example, I've recently tested the Ping i230 versus i530, which are probably the equivalent irons in the Ping range to these two, and there was definitely a greater difference between the two irons in how they performed. Here I'm not seeing as much of it, definitely a bit more distance in T200, slightly stronger ball flight, maybe a fraction more spin in 150, but we're talking marginal differences rather than significant. It's so high. It really is so high launching. If you're someone who needs a bit of help to get the golf ball up in the air as a better player, I definitely think these are an option. Both of them, launch angles of 22 degrees with spin rates at 4873, carrying at 155. But look at that height, 95 feet and landing at 48. If you need stopping power and a bit more height to help you with it, put them on your test list. Really put them on your test list. That's the shot I want to see, just a baby draw. I think unfortunately I've started it on target and just turned it off of it. Look at that, it's just such a golf shot. 114 of ball speed, 163 of carry, 5119 on spin, launch, land angle, peak heights, all impressive. Really, really impressive. I really like these. These feel incredible. They feel a little bit better, a little bit more kind of, yeah, softness. You can feel that kind of through your hands when you hit the shots out the middle. They do feel fantastic. Sounds are very similar between both clubs. Feel different, both feel great. There's not a lot in it, but if you do want a little bit more feel, I think you'll get that out of the T150 ever so slightly. But I don't think any golfer is going to play the T200 and be disappointed with the feel of them. That's just unreal. I really, really, really like these. Look at that, 113 of ball speed, carrying at 163.4, spinning at 4768, launch at 21.1, peak height 98 feet, land angle 47.9. That's unbelievable. An absolute middled one to finish on. It's a great shot to finish on. 111 of ball speed, carrying 156, spinning at 5.4, exactly what I was hoping to see in terms of spin rates. Launched at 22.2, peak height of 101.5, land angle 50 degrees. Okay, so done hitting shots with the T150 and T200. First impressions in the bay is both these irons are actually quite similar to each other, more similar than I was expecting, and therefore I think this is really important that we go home and dissect all of that TrackMan data side by side and try and call out the differences between the T150 versus the T200 to help you make the right decision on which one of these irons is right for you. Let's do that now. I'm pleased to say that my gut feelings in the studio are backed up by the data. In the 7-iron, in my hands, these two models are incredibly similar. Let me show you. Starting on the left-hand side, you can see that my club head speed was virtually identical with both sets of shots, but interestingly, the ball speeds were also virtually identical, meaning so were the smash factors. So I feel confident saying that both irons are very similar speed golf clubs. However, if I just cut away and show you my strike location, you can see I was incredibly consistent and slightly heel biased with the T150, whereas I was slightly heel biased but a touch more inconsistent with the T200, and that could be an example of the T200 offering that slightly higher forgiveness as it's kept up with the T150 in terms of speed despite greater variability in my strike. In terms of spin rates, as expected, the TITLEIST T150 was a fraction higher on average at 5,000 RPM exactly versus 4,631 RPM with the TITLEIST T200. Again, that could be possibly due to the slightly weaker loft of the T150. It's probably worth reminding you that during a custom fitting there is an option to adjust loft slightly, so if for example you prefer the extra forgiveness in the T200 but need that fraction more spin, you could weaken the lofts ever so slightly and bump it up a little bit closer to the T150. Next up are the ball flights, both of which seriously impressed me. It's typical for me to hit a 7-iron about 80 feet in the air, so to see both of these reaching peak heights that average over 90 feet, with some shots passing 100 feet, is testament to how strong the ball flights are, and they therefore offer a great option to golfers who need a little bit more stopping power through peak height and steeper land angles, even at average swing speeds like mine. In terms of the subtle differences, T150 did launch 0.5 degrees higher, deliver 3 feet of additional peak height, and offered 1.3 degrees of steeper land angle. Just to bring that to life for you, here's the side-on view where you can see that both clubs were virtually identical, with the T150 hitting its apex just a fraction earlier into its flight. Finally, those all-important distances. Due to that slightly lower spin, that fraction flatter ball flight, the T200 did carry 2 yards longer on average, but the TITLEIST T150 did stop about 13% quicker. Now, regular subscribers will be fed up of hearing me say this, but TrackMan does play extremely firm and fast, so it does over-exaggerate rollout, and on the grass I'd expect both clubs to stop a lot quicker, but I do think the percentage difference between the two clubs would be similar. As always, I like to end up by showing you my dispersion circles. As you can see, the TITLEIST T150 was slightly tighter from front to back, whilst the T200 was slightly better left to right. Right, so you've watched this video for the last 15 minutes. You've seen me hit a batch of shots with both of these golf clubs and talk through all that TrackMan data, and you're still scratching your head going, Luke, both these irons are performing exactly the same. I don't know which one to buy. Please, can you help me? And I think I have the answer to that. And the answer is combo set. Now, the reason why I say that is TITLEIST speak quite a lot about that in their marketing material, that they've tried to make all of the T-series blend in together with each other. So you've got the ability to either play a full set in one of their set of irons or combo 2 sets together. Now, with the player's distance category that both of these irons sit in, there's no exact definition of the handicap range there, but as a general rule of thumb from the different marketing material I read, it's typically targeting anyone from sort of a 5 handicap to up to about a 16 handicap. That's quite a broad range, and the skill set difference between a 5 handicapper and a 16 handicapper can be quite significant. So what I think TITLEIST have done here is they're targeting the T150 at golfers in that kind of 5 to 12 handicap range, and I think they're targeting the T200 at golfers in the 10 to 16 handicap range. So when you get a golfer like me who's off 11, I'm right in that point where both sets of irons cross over each other, and I therefore fall into the option of maybe considering a combo set. And I think that's proven by the fact that we've seen very similar performance out of both of these irons, because normally when you're looking at combo sets, it's somewhere around the 7-iron that you consider switching from the more forgiving iron to the slightly more scoreable club at the bottom end of your bag. Now, I think if we were able to test this video with a 5-iron and a 9-iron as well, I think in the 5-iron we would see that the forgiveness of that T200 would give me a lot more confidence in that end of the bag, and I think if we were to see me testing the 9-iron, I'd really benefit from the scoring ability and the control and the stopping power of the T150 in that part of the bag, and therefore a combo set where I switch over at 7 or 8-iron would probably be the perfect answer for me. However, if you're watching this video and your handicap is maybe 5 to 10, I definitely think you might consider a full set of the T150s. Equally, if you're a golfer that's maybe just at the 14 to 16 end of the player's distance category and you're looking to graduate from a set of game improvement irons, I think a full bag of T200s would be a really nice step for you. The final thing I do want to say on both of these irons is I have been suitably impressed by both of them. I've got a friend who owns a set of T150s and he absolutely loves those irons. Me personally, I owned the first ever version of the T200s, and whilst I wouldn't say that they were as good as these irons, they were a good set of irons. The one issue I had with them was launch and peak height with those irons, and that was the reason I moved away from them, because I'm quite naturally a low ball flight player anyway. As you've been able to see in this video, I was able to get some astronomical peak heights, good launches and good descent angles with the T200, and therefore I'd have absolutely no issues putting those irons into my bag tomorrow. Like I say, I would definitely though consider a combo set, as I'm trying to get my handicap down to single figures for the very first time. All that's left for me to say is if you like the video, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're not yet subscribed to Weekend Tour Bros, hit that button down below. And if you ring the bell icon, you'll get a notification every time one of my videos lands on YouTube. The final thing to say is if you like this video, I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. I'm really proud of the community we're building at Weekend Tour Pros. I love reading your comments. I love hearing the comments from people who own a set of the irons that we're talking about, because it really helps other viewers to get a more rounded view of the golf club that we're talking about. I've normally only been testing these for an hour or so, done a bit of research. Some of these irons I've tested a few times, but it is always great to hear from people who own the irons and have gamed them for 6 months or a year and can give us that more rounded view. So if you're one of those people watching this video, please tell us your experiences down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.